in and turn them on or activate them.
There
Again,
is
I didn't know if OBS played into it. Cool, we're on YouTube.
How do you know that? Oh, okay, it tells you. Cool.
It tells me on the screen. Yeah. Hi, tubes.
All right, cool. So yeah, this meeting is now streaming live on YouTube.
Cool.
And I'm guessing this is my channel.
How do you know that? Oh, okay, it tells you. Cool. It tells me on the screen.
Yeah.
Hi, tubes. I don't know. Is it going to his channel or our channel? Which one would it go to?
I'm guessing this is my channel.
I hear us.
I hear.
Yeah, I can
somewhere.
hear myself.
Where's that happening from?
Oh, I see. Yeah, I've got it open here. There are 3 watching now.
That is on your channel?
Yeah,
Your channel?
yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
cool.
up on.
That's interesting as fuck.
It's up
So-
on my channel, and then
so-
so I can actually pull out this pop-out chat. I bet I can open up pop-out chat, close that video, bandwidth, and then hi Porter Bear. We've got someone in chat already. That's awesome. And then yeah, so this is the full Shamil. And you guys are aware of what's happening because you see it on your end too. Good stuff.
That's exciting.
And then, yeah, it's too bad I don't have anything profound to say.
This is a test. This is only a test. Had this been a real show, you would have been advised some truth, maybe some consequences. However, this was only a test.
I will show my book burning. This is pretty cool. Someone burned my book, guys.
Did somebody really send a selfie in of your book burning?
Seriously.
Yes, that's not me kidding about that. Like that's a real thing. I'm gonna hit share, and I'm gonna see if I can go over to my Finder here and find this projects. Here it is. Probably shouldn't be showing everybody all this. Darn, there's no more selfie folder. Selfie. There it is. Selfies. EMOC. Yep, someone burned my book today. Here it is. They sure did not like Blueprints of Mind Control.
So, I mean, I don't know how to even approach some questions about this whole idea because I don't want to offend any of your fans, but I mean, what brought this about? What triggered this? Did they tell you what was the trigger?
So in June, I wrote about, I'm going to turn this off. In June, I wrote about Pride Month, corporate Pride Month, you know, and I just explained that this is a corporately induced eugenics program. I made some arguments about how it is. And I also said that sodomy's wrong. And I think it's the sodomy is wrong is what brought this burning on. This person has been pretty upset with me for about a month now. And I've tried to explain, you know, just why I think it's wrong. It's not even that it's wrong, like it shouldn't be done. It's just that, like, sex is magic. Like, seriously, if you do sex right, you will bring a new soul into the world. I mean, that's how transmutive, that's how magic it is. And it just happens to be that sex is magic and butt sex is black magic. And the reason why is because I mean, I don't need to explain it, right? But you're doing things that it's the archetypal. I don't even want to say it's wrong. It's because black magic is black magic. It's not like it doesn't work. It's just that that's what it is. It's going to create a different response in your body. I think it actually causes like a pranic breach. And I'm talking about like if you were to do meth or like a bunch of cocaine, the same thing would happen. You get this breach in you, I think brought about by core shame. And this is where people that don't like me saying that would say, well, yeah, it's because I'm inducing the shame. But I'm saying that this was here before I'm even talking about this. This is just the natural. This is why it's called butt sex. I mean, it's you're putting your sword up the wrong end. I mean, it's just there's just intrinsically that's what's happening. And again, I'm not even saying people shouldn't do it, but what if it opens you up to possession the exact same way taking meth does, the exact same way drinking too much alcohol does, the exact same way all these drugs seem to have the same thing, that when we're walking around shaming our ego, what we're really doing is lowering our pranic force field, like on a spaceship. You know, Captain, the shields are down to 35%. You can take some photon torpedoes, right? But if you take your shields break down too much, your crew's going to get infected, and I can't help but wonder if this book burning. God, this is going to sound crazy. I can't believe I'm talking like this. But what if that person has actually been possessed this whole time? And what if they are reacting this strongly to me because of that possession? Because I'm actually pointing it out, you know?
I used to work in the adult industry as a clerk
Really?
at a store. Yes, I worked there for about 7 or 8 years. And in that time, I did a lot of research. I read a lot of books about, name a topic in the sexual world. I pretty much have either read about it, watched a video about it. We had we were very proud of our section on education in all manners. I mean, everything from, just any kind of topic, not just, how to do weird stuff, but like, you're disabled. How do you have sex with your partner? Or you were abused. Now what? That kind of thing. We had a lot of, that was our thing, is educating people. And I can't tell you the number of times where I would be there, long hair, mustache, weird clothes. Some lady would come in all nervous and freaked out. By the time she left there, she was like ready to have happy time with whoever. And it was great because I knew at that time that I had done the research and I had done the things that would let me teach these people and guide them in a way that would be a very positive experience.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, there were aspects of it where people would come in and there was darkness attached to these people. You could feel it. It was like hovering over them. And they would inquire about certain things, and I would just direct them, down the road to another store, because I didn't want to deal with that energy. I could tell this wasn't about love or energy, positivity, or anything, because I fully believe that sex is indeed a magical experience. So that idea of possession, looking back on some of that experience, since I've learned some of the things I have learned, I don't doubt that when you are, think about MK trauma programming. When you are in a situation where you've traumatically taken control of somebody else's will, and they have given you that will, that's a huge part of some of this sexual play out there. Yeah, you're open. So just because you're open and they think they're the ones that are in control doesn't mean something else can't slip right in while you're in that traumatic state, without a doubt. Yeah, that's really and that's a huge can of worms.
Well, it's a good can of worms. It's perfect that it's happening because Jerry Marzinsky, this is a guy that I've written about. You're not going to find anyone in the country that knows more about this possession stuff than Jerry Marzinsky. He worked in all these prisons and all these psych wards. Just a lot of experience. When I say a lot, like over 100 patients, just like what you were seeing, Walt, but he was, he was on the inside of where they were living. And first of all, it's always the psychiatric doctors that get attacked the most. It's always even more than the orderlies who are surrounded by paranoid schizophrenics all day long. It's when the doctors come. It's when, and I'm not trying to compare myself to a doctor, but it's where someone like me comes and says, here's where it is. like here it is. I can see you now. I see you, demon. And when I say that, that's what sets people off. Now, I'm not saying that that's why everyone does that to me, because I realize I'm an asshole, and I accept that. But
well, that's just like, I'm not saying everybody who thinks or does something that is outside the norm sexually is possessed. That is not at all what I'm saying.
yeah.
But there are people out there who have gotten into some situations with being open. Yeah, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to clarify.
No. Yeah, I get it, and I'm glad we did, because none of this is going to work if we're trying to put on this purity blanket, over everything. I mean, that's going to do the exact same thing but worse. It's not going to really help. I'm just saying that when you perform magical acts like sodomy, certain kinds of sodomy, I should say, because technically oral sex is sodomy. But when you perform certain kind of acts, you were participating in a magic ritual that we're pretending isn't happening, but you're still held responsible for it. This is the key. You're still held responsible for it. This is why I think it's so dangerous, the mind control, because I think that we're still being held responsible for our consent, even though we think that we shouldn't be, because, well, no, that's not what I meant to happen. It's like every time America invades another country, or every time Planned Parenthood kills a baby, if that's happening from our tax dollars, that is extracting our consent in some way, unless we've figured out a way to officially declare, I withdraw my consent from you. I just think that that's the true nature of sovereignty. The true nature of sovereignty is understanding, hey, if I'm going to chop down this tree, there's a robin's nest up there that's gonna die, and if I really want the tree down, I either need to go save that robin, or, suffer the chronic consequences of doing that to somebody. And I'm glad that we live in that system. I don't want to cheat. I would love to be held responsible for what I'm doing. But that's where it comes back to this consent issue, because it's always a constructed consent. It's always, and that, maybe it's not working. Maybe God's cool and he sees it and he's like, yeah, that doesn't count. But I don't think so, because it's the energy is still going there. My 40% of our sweat equity is still being collected by this machine. And that machine is still doing NWO things every single day. And if I want to sit here and pretend that there's a magical savior that's going to fix it and still give my consent, that doesn't absolve me of any responsibility. That's the definition of evil. Evil is when you evacuate yourself to the machine. And that's literally what the chain of command is. It's that system where you're giving yourself up to it. And so maybe that's really what's happening with demons, where even though we've been told we're pretending they don't exist, they manifest in certain ways that we're ignoring. We're trying to suppress through pharmaceuticals. Like Jerry Marzinski, the guy I'm going to interview, he's not even allowed to say that these aren't hallucinations. Like the industry requires him to call them hallucinations. And paranoid schizophrenia, the industry is a $7 billion a year industry. It could be a lot more. It's at least that. And everybody's saying, well, it's a chemical imbalance. But no one's been ever able to point to a chemical. No one's ever been able to say this is what does it. And if it is a chemical imbalance, then why does it work? Why do meth heads see the same demons that a paranoid schizophrenic sees? Why are they both seeing these dark shadow figures? Why? Well, and Jerry even has cases of shared, I don't want to call them hallucinations, but that's what I have to call them right now so I can explain it to you. But where he has recorded shared hallucinations where two meth heads are like, no, there's two black shadows over there, one sitting on the hood of the car. That one has red eyes. That one, I can't see his eyes yet. Like he hasn't congealed in my psyche fully. And that's what it seems like happening. These guys are seeing these temporary projections of the prana. We would call it this. That's where I keep coming back to the software. It's your brain is such a powerful supercomputer that is creating the psychic program, an algorithm of addiction. Let's just talk about addiction. It creates an algorithm of addiction I live at this bar. This bar is how I mask my pain. I have an addiction to it. So after I die, there's still this chronic black demon that hangs out at this bar. It's a record echo. It's an echo in the canyon is what it is. It's a continued echo. And I obviously there's different techniques to undo that echo. And meanwhile, those techniques are being hidden every day. Let me pull something up for you guys that I just saw. You guys may have already seen this, but this is weird. Let's see here. Here it is.
I did manage to get our live stream back up and running. I realized I never did hit start streaming again.
Oh, well, welcome to IRL Media as well.
So are we both streaming?
We are both streaming.
Sweet. So here's what I've found. You guys probably already seen this. I'm usually the last of the party. I don't mind. Tesla invented the violet ray therapy. Can you guys see that? It's it was this device, like this wand. It was like a plasma ether device, and it was basically used for manipulating the ether. And Rockefeller took over the medical industry early 1900s. We can go into that, but he did it in three different ways. He took over the local governments. He created a small government society. Then he took over the medical boards. He said, I will build you a hospital, but you're going to have someone that I want on the board to approve of what kind of treatments we want to do. And then the third is he went after it legally. He legally started to own things. And one of the things that he did is he sued this device out of existence. The FDA has finally declared this device illegal in the United States. You can't even bring one of these in. You could still buy these machines outside the United States. But the point is that this is some kind of like pranic manipulator, almost like a reset, because what you're really doing is you're filling it with a static charge, and that static charge is able to basically reset all of the whatever's happening in the ether, around that area. So all this stuff is suppressed. Going back to the original thing, if we have an entire month dedicated to these kind of activities, like sodomy, it's really no different than when we declared prohibition. We spent 12 years where we have no alcohol. And then we said you can drink now, which made the entire country drink at once. So again, you have the same kind of demonic possession door opening where you have an orchestrated event, Yeah. You're starting an orchestrated event that's inviting this possession to come in nationwide. I mean, it's some pretty dark magic, man. Anyway, Jerry and I are going to talk on Sunday more about it. I've got a lot of questions. Jerry Marzinski, Cody. I'm talking to him on Sunday.
So I do think, okay, you've touched so many things and I'm trying to keep up with them all. I should have been taking notes, but it's late. The shadow people, entities, dark ones, whatever the hell you want to call them. Okay, so personal dealings throughout life, in both the realm, I don't even know how to explain it. Okay, so let's just say like this, period. I've dealt with the dark entities consciously here, this, what we call reality. I've dealt with them in what other people would call, I guess, the astral realm, astral projection. To me, I think that's more reality. And I've also dealt with things that were, without a doubt, human souls who were fucking lost, pissed, angry, mad at the situation, trying to communicate with people, unable to do that, which infuriates them more. So now they're going to show you, because they know, they do see that there's not lovely light waiting for them, that they're going some fucking where else, whatever the case may be, or they're creating their own hell or whatever the hell you want to call it. So now they're going to torment you on their way out and try to take you to that fucked up place they're in. I've seen all of that. And I know we could go into another 3 or 4 hours on the details. There's no point. Look into it yourself. If you haven't experienced these things, I think it's a frequency thing. I think for me, it's a family thing. Everyone in my family has been like this. So
What do you mean like this?
My grandmother would have
Walt's got the shine.
the dead relatives that would come visit the night they would pass, and the next morning she would tell us that, aunt whoever, brother whoever passed, and then 2 hours later we get the call and yeah, he did pass. Or man, the things that happened. My grandfather was a Baptist preacher, and the things that happened on the grounds of the church there before they were breaking the grounds, when they were breaking the ground. Oh man, the stories my mom. I grew up with all of this. Lights in the halls and people coming to visit that aren't there when you answer the door. That's just all out in the real, like I said, the real world. Then you start dealing with whatever you want to call them. Some people choose to call them demons. Some people call them dark entities. Some people call them aliens. Some people used to call them elves. Some people used to call them the changeling. They've been here for a long time. They've always been here. And some have their own agenda, and it's not anything to do with helping you out. And some seem to kind of want to give us a hand. Man, I didn't think we'd ever get into all this tonight. So I've been talking about this stuff for years on my show, our show we do on Iron Realm. I've learned techniques. I've learned ways to deal with them energetically. People that come here at my house and stay the night. I don't know if it's the house, I don't know if it's me, but they usually have dreams that are quite interesting. I don't know. I don't want to get into too many details because this involves people's personal things that they may not want revealed on the air. So, but myself, like I said, I've learned over the time dealing with all of these entities that it's not always a demon. It's not always something from the other side. It's maybe just, again, a person, especially I think in that situation like you were talking about where the two different meth people were seeing basically the same thing in the room. That was probably a friend of theirs or friends of theirs that had passed over and were there watching them fuck their lives up and maybe trying to warn them or maybe trying to take them to hell with them. Or I've seen it in all these different ways. I've had people that have had both experiences. So,
well, there's hospitals are really big for these kind of entities to appear. So it definitely means that there's feeding areas, and if it's not feeding areas, it could be simple. Again, coming back to the idea of echoes, of an archetypal echo. Your brain is a computer. It's running a program, and that program is a behavior or a trait or a temperance. It depends on how long you have it. You develop a habit. The habit turns into a temperament. The temperament turns into a personality. So you could call those like the 4 different levels of demon, of possession. So a lot of these addictions will hang out in certain areas because they're looking for a pranic breach. They're looking for places to feed. And so that really does make sense that the hospital would be the perfect spot for dark entities to hang out because they're looking for free holes to jump in and take over. What sucks is that we know this is happening. We can see it, but we're living in a world that's insisting that this is a hallucination. So it's in denial about it. So we're not even able to fix it. Quite the opposite. Being in denial is going to make it stronger. It's actually creating a parking lot for it, where it's like, I promise to never look at what you guys are doing over here.
What's funny to me is the people that have these experiences in their life, their dreams, their waking, their whatever, and then they have to figure out a way to fit it back into their nice little blinder view of reality, or it flips everything on its head, and then they have to start wrestling with their actions and the repercussions of that. I know it is a huge thing. I mean, and there's so much energy that is exchanged between us as people, between us and these entities, like you said, looking for that breach. You said you'd read some of the Carlos Castaneda stuff where he talks about the points and I mean, think about those things just lurking around, looking for that adherence place and just sucking on. And there you go. Now, what do I do? I've got this addiction. How do I get rid of it?
Well, something not just Jerry Marzinski says, but something other people say is the demons can't lie. I'm not trying to say demons are nice or that demons are trustworthy. I'm trying to say that they don't have the capacity to hold a lie and carry that through. Like, a demon's not going to be able to say, I told you yesterday that this apple was really an orange, and today I'm remembering that. What you're looking at is a complex organism to be able to lie. You need to be able to store a different timeline inside of that software, that demon software. All information is stored in your body. All your memories are stored somewhere physically in your body. In fact, it's not your brain. Your brain's a router. We know that because Egyptians, they never saved the brain. They saved the organs. The spleen is, called Eros, the home of the emotional body. That's why when people get like transplants, organ transplants, there's all these different things that come with it. Now, it makes you wonder, are you downloading someone else's memory bank if you're getting their spleen? Or while you're in the hospital, did you get possessed because your egoic field was down? Well, like it really could be either one of those things or both. But because we're pretending that these things don't exist, we're never going to be able to get a straight answer from this, from what we call the smart people, the experts in the field. In fact, we're going to always not get the right answer. We're going to get more pharmaceuticals. We're going to get a chemical imbalance. We're going to get a DSM-5 of, no, it's called hallucination.
The whole hospital setup, my mom, my sister, both respiratory therapists, could have went in that field and, financially been a lot better. I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't deal with just being in a hospital, the feeling, the overwhelming. But as you were saying, my son, okay, well, my mom actually had the hospital blanket, thermal white hospital blanket, the old kind. You know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. They don't use them anymore. It's the old technology. So I had this blanket that my mom had given me that she had gotten, I'm sure, from a hospital. My son didn't like it. The people in the blanket would talk to him all night. He did not want to sleep under that blanket. So, I mean, just that energy that was trapped in that item, this thing, it's a freaking blanket. And it was filled with the energy, the suffering that these people had dealt with. So then amplify that to a building filled with these people. I don't doubt that there's just all kind of entities hovering and waiting throughout the whole place.
Well, and on the good side of that, think about the demon, and keep in mind, guys, that demon literally means divine spirit. It doesn't, it's not automatically labeled bad. I know that's what we do, but I'm just telling you that originally that word didn't mean anything bad. It just literally meant divine spirit. So think about your lunchbox. When you're a kid, when you come to school, that your lunchbox or your lunch bag isn't just food. If you think about it, that there's a magic that your mom is putting into that bag. It's a spell for you in the middle of the day. That yes, it does nourish you, but there's something really more powerful there. There's something deeper there that's going on. This is why I was talking about the prana economy so much, because you're giving the essence to that food, and then that essence is being transferred. It's being transmitted. That's why when an apple, if you think about maybe what an apple really is, the reason why an apple rots is because the prana is slowly running out. Like the life force essence of what that fruit is only has a sustainable future for so long. In fact, the rotating ether that we live in is churning that prana out very much like you would squeeze an orange, just like you would pull the juice out of that as it's turning over time. It's almost like a self-clearing ceremony that's happening to all the energy all the time. And that's why we eventually die. But we have this psychic echoes again that are able to sustain somehow longer. And it makes you wonder how that mechanism works. And it makes you wonder, well, maybe all it takes is this Tesla device. Like this is like real life. That Tesla device is the same as Reiki. It's the same as energy work. It's the same as anyone who, it's really the same thing you get in the hospital. Because if you're going to go in the hospital, if you do find a doctor that you like and you trust, you're going to heal there. So you're going to get something transferred in that way. It would just be sweet if we could start taking this more seriously and looking at this, because you can talk to these entities. Jerry Marzinsky documented, you can talk to them. You can push them off. You can push them back. You can have a conversation with them. You can determine what they're doing. You can determine what makes them mad, what makes them happy. Now, let's say that it's still a software program. All this would make sense because the demon software is running in your mind, in your psychic computer. So it's able to project the same way that I could have a conversation with you today, Walt. When I was out walking my dog, I could guess what you might say if I said, hey, do you want to do a stream tonight? And then I heard you say, well, I don't know, I've got to do this, or I've got this other show. Like we're creating that event in our mind, but that does have a psychic echo to it. That is another piece of software. Maybe we're even pranically, what if we're taking prana, creating a shape, calling it Walt, and imbuing it with life long enough so I can have a conversation with it in my head. And then there's supposed to be a cleansing ceremony. And we probably do that naturally, but when our prana's down, when our egoic boundaries down, when our ship sensors, where our shields are down, we're not doing that clearing. So we end up with an open ceremony. And this is exactly what Crowley was describing when he was talking about his ritual out at Loch Ness. He was saying that he was not able to complete his ceremony. When I first heard that, I thought that's a pretty dark, sick way to tell people, hey man, there's this massive evil demon still in the world. I mean, that's brilliant, like way to haunt people. But there's also could just literally be some truth to that you're manifesting this thing, but you're not able to complete it. It would be no different than they used to take a knife. I saw this on Thomas Sheridan today. This is just a perfect example, but you take like a dagger and you heat it up and you would imprint the cross with four, taking the end of the knife and then now it's upside down. So you've got this St. Peter mark, the mark of St. Peter, basically. During that ceremony, that requires four times that you're burning yourself. What if you could only burn yourself twice? Like what if it was just too much? Like what if your skin boiled off or whatever? You didn't finish the spell. So there's that. Sure, that happens, but maybe what's happening chronically, like underneath it, right, is that you're opening that seal up the very first time with your intention. I'm doing this, and something is coming into you. That burning sensation is causing the ego to fall deep enough where whatever it is you're calling is able to come into you. And either it didn't find you a strong enough vessel to hold all four. And I say this because if you go back to sodomy, the reason why my book got burned, that's a very similar kind of ritual. You're violating that egoic boundary, which is the same as casting a spell, saying, I invite the homunculus, which is pretty gross, but it's a Crowley thing that basically involves butt sex. But anyway, I invite the homunculus. You're inviting that in by doing that, but you don't understand what's happening prana-wise, so you're not able to to cleanse yourself, to fix the spell. Again, I'm not saying we need to set up a Puritan society, but if we want to do this, maybe we could teach people about how demons work and about how prana works, so we don't have to live in a society full of psychotic people that are setting my book on fire, going, "You're the enemy because you pointed where the demon was." It's crazy. It shows you how much of the real world is a conspiracy when I'm the one who's getting shit for critiquing sodomy. Like, why do we live in a world where that's what's happening versus the other way?
Yes, it is.
Go ahead.
I mean, go ahead, Zach. I mean, Josh, sorry.
I didn't really have anything other than it is just a sad state of affairs when something that is not productive. It's just not productive. Is nothing's going to come of it other than a quick carnal release.
Yep. Or maybe something else is coming of that, but we don't understand it. The exact same way. I'll put it this way. My wife at the time, the one that cracked me open, like really bad shit happened there. Like really bad shit. I think I'm kind of a decent writer now. It's because of how bad that shit was that happened. There were times where I was talking to her where she would just like switch, and there was a different altar in the room now. And I don't like to talk about this because it sounds like I'm talking bad about her. That's not my goal. I'm just telling you that the behavior would switch from I'm the nicest person you've ever met to your genitals are about to hurt because I'm gonna fucking go after them with my claws. Like really weird, like massive changes. And it was always an alcohol trigger thing. It was always every night after wine. That's what did it. And I was never smart enough to catch that. It actually was a friend of ours that said, "Well, James, don't you understand this always happens after wine?" Like it never occurred to me. But again, coming back to this demon thing, who's to say that black shadow didn't live at her house and knew if I show up at 7:00 today, just like a shark, if I show up in front of this vent where all these fish gather right after sunset, I'm going to get some good food. Why could there not be a demon that's doing the exact same thing? Again, this pranic echo, whatever it is you want to call it, it could just literally be an echo of her own mind, of just whatever. And it understands I'm allowed to come out at this time. Eckhart Tolle calls this the pain body. I don't know if you've read him at all, but he writes The Power of Now. I think that's what it's called. It's been a while, but he's written a couple books. But he talks about the pain body. It's this living entity, pranic entity that arises inside you and feeds. And people who have really strong energy have really strong pain bodies. When it comes out to feed, it could stay out there for several days. It's going to depend on how much nectar you're able to feed it. These all could be the same thing. Like all of this could be the same technology we're talking about. But because, and Josh, this is what I was talking about earlier, because the Bible is like this ghost trap in Ghostbusters, that the doors, the Bible slid out in front of you and the doors open and the light just blinds your belief, and it pulls all your belief into this device. You've got these two towers. You've got the Old Testament. I will kill you. I command you to kill your son. Wait, don't do it. Okay, wait, now do it. Okay, wait, don't do it. Like really just screwed up. Okay, okay. And then you've got the New Testament. This just all about mercy. Although Lord is still pushed really hard in the New Testament. It's always constantly, I will give you mercy, but it's only after you understand that you've got a blood debt to me, and and you should feel really guilty for, it's the same kind of magnetic, because there's one Lord, because there's one way, the Nicene Creed is the most important part of this. And Islam has the same thing. It's one way. It's one Lord. It can only be this way. That's what creates that vacuum. And this is going to sound Wait, anyway, what if the Holy Spirit is a demon? What if the Holy Spirit is the one demon that all the black wizards said, we need people to stop believing and stop charging all these other demons. So we're just going to give them one demon. And that demon is something that we feel is tame enough. So it needs to be a demon that's about being meek, about having, turning the other cheek, about being almost not masochistic, because there's nothing masochistic about it, but more willing to be a pushover. And that demon would feed, meaning that any demon that comes in is going to create a symbiotic relationship with you. So it's going to want you to do meth or attack someone's balls if you had wine or make someone feel better. These could be good and bad. These are psychic programs. It doesn't have to, I don't even want to put morality on it. But the point is that the only demon that's ever talked about in the Bible is one. And it's always the Holy Spirit. And it's got a personality. It's got a calling card. It's got a protocol that you can access it. But you can't.
By inviting it in.
Say what?
By inviting it in.
Yes.
You have to go forth to the front up there and invite him into your heart. Into your heart, no less.
In a formal ceremony, and you're rewarded for that. And I did that when I was a kid. I remember.
I did too, my friend. And I did the
Feel it?
baptism ritual. Oh, yeah. My
I
grandfather
felt
was
it.
a Baptist preacher. Now, he's not the one that did it. It was actually here in the Bayou Teche, where I live now, when I was like 12, at a camp, at a kids' camp. I never did it at the home church because it never got that build-up. It never felt like that for me there. But at the camp, where we were all the same age and we were just being hammered with it, dude. Oh, my goodness. It was insanely.
So imagine.
When I say back on it now.
Imagine what figures were at that camp, Walt, because I had the same thing happen. Mine was at a camp. It was in a ceremony. I felt it. I came home and told my mom, and she flipped out.
My dad, too, he lost his fucking mind. I can't believe you did that there, not at our church. Like, I offended him. It's like, what the hell? I thought this was what it was all about.
That's what but my mom was more like, wait, you felt it? Wait, what do you mean you felt it? And I remember looking at her like,
you felt it. Oh, wait.
I'm like, wait a minute, am I not supposed to feel it? What's going on? Because I did feel it. I remember feeling it. I definitely remember feeling it. And I'm not complaining about it. I'm just trying to talk about it. That's all. But again, we've set up this situation where we're not going to talk about it. It's going to be hallucination. If it's meth, it's going to be a chemical imbalance. If it's paranoid schizophrenia, and it's going to be religious fervor. If it's in Christianity. But meanwhile, it's all the same technology. It's the exact same technology broadcast across 3 different spectrums. And that's why people have the same visions of God. That's why the miracle at Fatima was a repeatable possession by thousands of people that were like, and it was opened by kids. Kids opened that seal.
Or even like at Georgia, was it Conyers, Georgia? The lady that it was like late 80s, maybe early 80s, mid 80s, Conyers, Georgia. This lady would have visions of Mary. Rose petals would fall from the sky, the whole 9 yards.
Wow.
And I knew 2 ladies I worked with when I used to deal at blackjack at the casino. And I mean, I've known these ladies like my whole life. They were very true, real ladies. And they had gone and they had experiences there they couldn't explain, just mind-blowing stuff when you hear it. And it's like, okay, so how the hell did all this happen? I was always trying to fit it into whatever, UFOs or like what made all this happen for these thousands of people at this place?
Well, why couldn't the Blessed Virgin be a spirit, a demon? And again, if anyone's new here, demon means divine spirit. That's really all it means. You set up the moment you start reading that, okay, well, I have a blood oath to Jesus. He was tortured because of me to make it where I'm no longer dirty. But that wasn't the whole. Let's call that a life debt. Like in the days of old. 2,000 years ago. Oh, you saved my son. I owe you my life, right? And people would fulfill their life debt. That's a good way to manipulate mind control someone, to, if I can set up there's always been psychopaths. Why would a psychopath not do that? Like, why would they not set up a situation where, oh, I saved you by first I pushed you when you weren't looking, and then I saved your life. Now you owe me this life debt. This book, this Bible prana trap doesn't just have one death. Every apostle, every single one gets slaughtered, like really bad. Like, they all get crucified unless they've been stabbed first. And it's like stabbed multiple times. Like James, for example, heads down to India, and like he's in India, and for some reason a bunch of people come up to him and stab him too. It's setting up this it sets up this this guilt equation. Like, you feel, oh man, all these people have died to tell me this story. All these people have died to hook me in to this prana economy, this economy I have, which is I will receive salvation, right? I'm getting this prana of salvation, but only if I agree that I'm in need of salvation. Only if I agree that I am in the pit. Only if it's basically like, yeah, if you climb down that abandoned well, I will be nice enough to give you a ladder. You have to go down first before you could benefit from the ladder to climb out. So the salvation is already hooked on your very first assumption that you had to make. I think that could be the magnetic gravity of this book. And that's why the two books are so different. It's just like the two towers of 9/11, You've got one that's that's hardcore, and one that's mercy. What severity and mercy. It's causing you to be confused, just like my wife would do, where she'd be like, you're the nicest guy I've ever met. You understand me so deeply. And then, you're terrible. You're not good. You're worthless. That was something she would call me. And it's like, how do you even call someone worthless? Like, how do you get from you're the greatest thing that I've ever met to you're completely worthless? That creates a disassociation in me. It creates a Hegelian dialectic where I'm jumping back and forth. This is what made me so freaking sad and broken. This is why I lost my career. I wasn't able to focus on this stuff anymore. But this is how any psychopath works. This is how any demon or any kind of hijacker is going to try and take over. They're going to set you up between two towers. They're going to have you where you've got a golden child and you've got a scapegoat. And you are torn between them. And that tearing between is what breaks your egoic barrier. Basically like sodomy, basically like taking meth, or having enough trauma in your life where you develop what we're calling paranoid schizophrenia. All of these cause the exact same thing happening. Can I create a breach in this person's shield? And if so, all of these things want to come in and feed. And that would make sense if you were controlling a collective. If you understood how all this worked and you were a psychopath, you wouldn't want anyone to know how this works. This would be something you could manage. This is all you have to do is just keep setting up this system where if the ego's low enough, the demons can still feed. And this explains all these programs. The Corporate Pride Month, shaming prejudice, because prejudice is your free will, calling everyone racist, calling everyone supremacist, calling everyone a dirty, rotten, derby carbon bastard.
The whole politically correct agenda, the whole fucking thing, dude. I mean, that's what they've been setting up so that we are ashamed of every fucking thought we have now.
So what if all of it, what if the entire program is purely for this demonic management? Because you've got the belief in the Bible, and then if you can create the idea that there's nothing but outer space, a vacuum, and you're always shrinking, that's a powerless gesture to be in. You're living in an incredible, a forever shrinking world, and it's nothing but the vacuum. Vacuum means nothing can travel in it. There's no sound, there's no empathy, that you have light, but then that really breaks you into this kaleidoscope idea where you're not looking at true light. You can look at a kaleidoscope of what's happening. Again, it sets up the exact same thing. It's almost like mosquito training, where if I can convince this guy to always wear short sleeve shirt at night, the mosquitoes can always feed. It's always the same thing. As long as that's held true, then the mosquitoes are happy. And if the mosquitoes are happy, I'm happy because they're not biting me. You know, I've got them all out in this field of all these outsiders, you know, the non-chosen people, basically, you know, any kind of narcissistic relationship like that. The person that is not chosen, the psychic goyim, you know, the prana goyim, the ones that are here to serve everyone else. You have a pretty good corporate business plan, you know, like a pretty good prana business plan there. You can run the whole world that way. And all it takes is just understanding how demons work and not assigning them one, the Holy Spirit, and nothing else. And what's weird is that I was reading Gospel of Thomas today. It says this in other places, but the Gospel of Thomas in the Nag Hammadi says, you can insult the Father, you can insult the Son. Don't you ever insult the Holy Spirit. You guys ever heard that before?
I have. That's the one unforgivable sin is to, what's that? Revoke the Holy Spirit or rebuke the Holy Spirit, I guess.
Weird, right? Well, like why that one? Well, that's so weird. And this is kind of not related, but maybe you'll see how it is related. It's interesting because Ivanka Trump had to convert to Judaism before she married Jared Kushner. And part of that is you have to reject Jesus Christ as your savior. You actually have to have a ceremony where you expel the Holy Ghost from your body, which is freaking fascinating, right? I mean, like you're setting up a ceremony, a ritual, the exact same way you would set up an exorcism, which really is a calling, if you think about it. If you're going to be a preacher, and you're going to go ahead, Walt.
Well, no, isn't it also part of the steps going through Masonic steps? You eventually go through each deity and get rid of it. I mean, that's part of those steps. And then at the end, I guess you find out supposedly who the architect of this place actually is.
Wow. I didn't know that.
My father, who spent his whole life not going to church, not being involved in church. I knew he was a Shriner. He went to these parades that were full of cars. It was cool when I was a kid. He had a weird hat. Said Alibaba. Didn't know what that meant. Bugs Bunny said it, so I was cool with it all. We'd go to hospitals, that kind of thing. I was about that same age, around that 12 time, when he suddenly just like every Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we were painting the church, the little mission church. We were there we became church people, and we weren't growing up on that side. My mom and dad divorced early. My mom was, but not him. He quit the Shriners, started this whole church fanaticism. In fact, built a church for this mission. He built an actual building for them, did the theme work and all that. So yeah, it was really, as I found out later, after he'd already passed and I couldn't ask any of these questions, the fact that part of the steps through the Shriner Masonic whole thing is to let go all of your whatever. And you step through each one. And that's just what I've read and heard. I don't know. I've never gone through any of that, so I can't verify.
It sounds like going clear, like Scientology does, you know? It really does.
Yep.
And there's always that ascension thing. It's always through an ascension program like that, where you have to first make the agreement that you need to get somewhere, that you're the step one of Blueprint of Mind Control, break target. You have to, if you can't break the target, you can't give them the fix. You can't provide them the only fix that they could ever need or want. These are built into all these systems, and they're always underpinned with guilt. And that's why I don't think this made it to the air, but if you start to question what's in the Bible, it feels the exact same way it's just as heavy on your soul as when you start to question the Holocaust. Like if you just start reading the data and you're just like, wait a minute, this Hitler's first beef was with the French. I mean, I'm just saying that it's true. If you read his book, he really hated the French. That was his first beef. And then he really hated the any kind of a subculture that was subverting what he called the fatherland. Please don't hear me trying to say Hitler's a good guy. I'm just explaining that what we're taught about the Holocaust is not necessarily what happened. In fact, the Allies probably killed more Jews than Hitler did towards the end of the war. And if you start to look at me personally, I've looked at that and said, wait a minute, if they brought Nazis over, that means they were already people that were into Nazis before Operation Paperclip. Like it's not like, oh, we hate Nazis, but now we're going to bring some over. No, there were people over there that were already into that. And that's why that explains why we entered the war. We entered the war to fulfill the Holocaust. The Holocaust is a burnt offering. It is a spell with the universe that says, I will give you what you want, control over the entire world, but you have to sacrifice something. So what do you want to sacrifice, black magicians? What is it that you're going to bring to the table to make the spell work? And their answer is, I'm going to bring you 6 million Jews. And that Jew is a really broad term because we don't even know who the real Jews are. But we really just don't know that. So this entire World War, it sounds weird. And this is what I mean. It's the exact same guilt feeling. I came to this by reading Mein Kampf and just by looking at the history and going, this seems like maybe this is closer to what actually was happening. There's still 6 million dead, but it's just a different motivation. It's a different thing that started this. And if you're into black magic, this is what you would do. You would have a sacrifice. You have to, like Thomas Sheridan says, if you want to bake a cake, you gotta fucking go buy some eggs, man. You gotta buy the batter. You gotta buy you have to put something into it. And that's the exact opposite of what prayer is. Prayer is a magic that's more about, hey, it'd be great if this would happen. It'd be great if that would happen. It's a comfort spell. It definitely helps you with comfort. And I'm not knocking it. But imagine if you controlled all the demons and you assigned one to the spiritual goyim and called it the Holy Spirit and set the rules where, okay, there's no magic. Don't be asking anything for magic. In fact, that's why King James, before he wrote the Bible, declared that witchcraft is when you imbue things with your voice. That's what's wrong. We're going to burn you for doing that. So he even set up the framework for this, which is there's nothing magical about your words. All you can do is pray for things. You can't transmute things. You're not allowed to do alchemy. All you can do is pray. But we've given you a demon to work with. That's your guy. It fits. Like all this stuff fits. And it explains why why evil is so freaking successful. It's because they've got all the demons on their side. And we're terrified of numbers like 666. Like it's literally the Hermetic sign of the sun. And we're terrified of it. We've got all Hollywood. That's why Hollywood is always showing you ghosts is like evil and scary. I think it's constantly pushing you out of demons, out of any kind of contact with the spirit world, unless it's through that Ghostbusters box. That's the only time you're going to be able to get in there. It's your one way, your one Lord, your one solution. It's the opposite of Hinduism. But it would make all this technology make sense. It would explain why 12% of the world, actually less, why 1% of the world is able to control 99% of it. Because it's all about managing the technology of demons, the technology of possession, the technology of these dark figures, whatever these dark figures are, which I still want to know,
Solomon and his seals, that was part of the Bible at one point before it was removed for our safety. When you think about the fact that, here is...
Smiley face, smiley face, smiley face.
Thank you. Here's this book that we're given. Now, these are the things you can and can't of course, you can't put these beings, you can't invoke them in any way. And anybody who's doing that, we're going to burn you. That's a perfect way to keep people away from all of this knowledge that that's what, as I'm reading this book, where is it? Right here? There it is back there. Dude, I keep wanting to go into so much, like, where are you getting these details? I want to go read some of the stuff you've gotten some of this from.
Well, Jerry Marzinski's a big one.
Is he one?
Yeah.
The fact that these people are doing rituals in front of us on a daily basis and it escapes you out there in the public eye, it's just amazing to me at this point. When we see all of these halftime things, these pre-show things.
A month-long Pride Month. A month-long.
Pride Month things.
Entire month. Really dedicated to non-magical sex. It is really what you could call that, like if you think about it. And so what else are you going to do except for these acts, which could in some ways break down your egoic field? Again, same thing as drinking too much. I would imagine Super Bowl night's probably a pretty big feeding ceremony if you think about it, where because it's always, sort of a planned event, you've got a chronic build up to it. There's almost like they're advertising it for
huge buildup, then violence and a release and a victorious, or the loss of being defeated. And again, you feel good about yourself because by golly, your sports ball team won. So that means you're a winner too. Unless, of course, your sports team lost, then damn it, you're a loser. And everybody's consuming alcohol and meat and wings and carbs and getting loaded up and just filth and disgust and glutton. Yeah.
And what does that gluttony do? It makes you feel guilty. Mm-hmm. And if your team loses, all that belief that you poured into that vessel is now gone. You're losing that. So you've got a ritual where half of the people that watch are going to be drunk, gluttonous, and down and sad. Like it's the same thing where if dolphins are smart enough, they start blowing bubbles in a circle and they slowly bring the circle in, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And, what happens exactly happens. And obviously when you get inside, I think that's why they hang out at hospitals. Obviously they have some kind of shelf life to them. They have some kind of navigational system in them, some kind of memory. They know where to, who to wait for. They know what's going to be a good score.
Well, and then talk about a crossroads where souls are entering and souls are leaving. And
exactly.
Souls here are being traumatized.
Oh God, you're so right. And then think about circumcision, man. Like, how easy would it be with a dark figure to just wait for that?
I'm pretty sure that's where my issues lied. It seems like I could probably go back that far to circumcisions and say, you know what, that was where my first little bit of skewed from my true self happened. And that little bit of a skew angled off. And I think I was prompted and I was encouraged to make that skew larger and larger and larger. Everything from being a young child and just being one of those pathological liars who just felt the need to lie about everything for no particular reason, to alcoholism and hardcore drugs and sexual deviancy.
Yeah, no one says sorry, and that sounds not important, but it's like crucial. No one comes up to you after your circumcision and says, I'm sorry, here's what happened. I know this hurts. I know it's wrong. None of that. And that really does add to your shields, your shields break down and you're already a little kid.
Damn, Josh man. And I did an interview with a lady named Janice. How do you say her last name? I've said it wrong too many times, Josh.
It's Barcelo. Janice Barcelo. Yeah. I thought that as soon as this conversation started tonight, Janice popped into my brain pan.
So unfortunately, due to our weird time zone there, she couldn't actually be live. So we recorded it with her, which kind of wound up being a little buffer and a blessing because it affected us both. greatly. I mean, it fucked us up talking about this and her discussing it and just things I'd never thought about in relation to this, and then you tie that to the whole Khazarian mythology.
Well, here's the idea of sex being magic. When the epigenetic damage to a young soul first coming into this world, when it's being created by two parents who don't love each other with loveless sex or even deviant sex and all this other things, when there is probably not a position necessarily, but there is a bond between a man and a woman when it's done for life. And sex is procreation, and that procreation is done with that love and that bond and that magical spell and that ceremony, and a soul is created in that way versus two people who don't love each other. One's got a headache and feels guilty and is ashamed of sex, and the other one isn't being withheld sex and is aggressive and is always trying to get it. And finally one breaks down, and pretty soon, okay, finally she's knocked up, and now we can all focus on this baby instead of our loveless marriage. But now this child has to carry around this epigenetic curse that it's been given by its parents. Yep. And then the first thing it happens to it when it's born is it gets the tip of its penis cut off without any anesthesia. Not so much as a how do you do, and just to wrap it up and send you on your way. And I think I can definitely see that kind of early trauma in a very young human being that would be a huge magnet to an energetic vampire who's really looking for an entryway.
Yeah, it would create the appetite. Like every time someone's born, you're creating that trauma echo from the circumcision. And that trauma echo is now hungry for what it just had. So that trauma echo is now looking for another way to have a circumcision, another place to emanate, to live itself. And that's really, man, if you think about that, wouldn't those same demons want to possess the doctor, possess the board that makes the decision that we want to circumcise, that would possess the alcohol board of, upping the proof content? In other words, that would possess the sodomite to want to have another sodomite to feed on after that last sodomite died. And so the taboo subject is we're never allowed to talk about, well what makes people gay? Like the person that burned my book got really mad when I said, well, I would imagine that most being gay is conditional. They didn't want to accept that. They wanted it to be, no, you're born gay and that's just the way it is. They wanted to be powerless to the gay. Okay. What if that's the demon saying that? I know this sounds crazy, but what if homosexuality was a possession? And what if the more homosexuals you have on this sounds so homophobic. I know, God, it sounds awful. But what if the more homosexuals you have on the planet, the more shadows you have that are wanting to feed off that, which means that it creates it's a reverberating echo. And it's not just about homosexuality, but this is the same thing for alcoholism. This is the same thing for circumcision. These trauma echoes set up a buffet. Here's a Chinese buffet and here's Ryan's buffet. This one has American comfort food. This one has, pot stickers. And it's just different feeding mechanisms that are set up. And that's why we're not getting better. Like alcoholism isn't getting better.
Well, I have to realize that I'm powerless against alcohol. And that the only way I can be cured of alcohol is through this higher power. I have to turn everything and all that I am and ask this higher power to make me this better person. I mean, this is your first 3 steps of your 12-step program. That's AA. There's your Masons. There's your higher power. There's your energetic, just not being good enough ever Your carbon baby, Garden of Eden ate the apple. Just sorry, you'll just never be good enough. You need to figure out just how piss poor you really are.
Yep.
And look to something else to fix you.
And if you don't feel, if you feel worse enough, then it only takes a little bump from the Holy Spirit to make you feel better. Like if you feel guilty enough for what happened, that guilt is a very specific receptor inside you chemically that's looking for absolution, right? Like the salvation, I'm just making this up, but salvation is in the right quadrant of your brain, you know? Like if you could pull that up on an fMRI, well, that quadrant of the brain is in a way a demon that has a certain flavor to it, a certain, again, it's an algorithmic program. It's a piece of software. There's a certain piece of software out there that just loves to feed just right there. It knows just what to do. And again, every time a new vampire is broken into, maybe you're actually creating this black shadow by not resolving that. And so like Jerry Marzinski says that bars in Baltimore are surrounded with these black creatures. Like it's not like one or two, it's like hundreds of them are amassed on these bars. And every person that comes into that bar that abuses themselves with alcohol, that breaks their ego shields enough, calls in this other demon. And that demon comes from somewhere. And that somewhere is the pit. And the closest thing that I can think of that would describe a pit would be what I do to robots when I write software. I create what's called a cron robot. A cron is a scheduling job that runs my entire system on Linux. I can tell cron, hey, in 1 minute, run this program. And this program I can write. And in 1 minute, it will create a ghost of me, a ghost in the shell. This is the shell program. It will create a ghost, a user that looks just like me, that my computer thinks is me. And it will fire up that program because I told it, I said, hey, have cron run this. But I can have cron run that every minute, which means that every minute I can create a new ghost in my machine. Now, as I do that, my machine's going to get really tired because it's going to feel like it's got 1,000 users and it's not going to be able to handle it anymore. But each of those ghosts are cast. They're invoked into the software program through cron. And that invocation is a spell that normally I would type. That spell would say run c://apps/ sodomy.pl. And I would run that program, and that program now runs in the background. And what does sodomy do? It does what any animal does. I need to survive. So I need a host, I need food, I need a stable environment to live, and I need to be able to reproduce. Like those would be its goals. But again, this is psychic software, so it has to be real airy. It can't be all funky. It can't have a deep emotional, it can't have lungs to breathe. It's not going to have this adrenaline system. It's not going to have an endocrine system. It's just going to have real basic needs, just there's going to be a demon of red that I just like red things. And there was a guy that, man, guys, I can't think of his name. I need to make sure I know this before Sunday. This old in 1700s, this guy was studying these demons, and he was talking more about how all of your habits and traits are demonic possessions. If you love music, a certain type of music, that is actually another kind of demon. In fact, that's really what explains the zeitgeist of what's popular, right? Like Taylor Swift right now, because she was scrolling by on Twitter, is the zeitgeist of, she's one of the zeitgeists right now. She's like at the head of that. So what does that actually mean? Maybe what that means is that there's been enough demons that have been created that want that kind of twangy white girl that hates white people kind of thing, happening. It creates that flavor. It's looking for, what's back here on this part of the head, and it feeds really well right there. And each time you crack open another person, which means here, listen to this song. If you can get that song into someone that has a deep, low shield, you can create that. You can spawn, just like I would spawn on my computer. You could spawn another demon that's looking for that Beyonce song. And literally, Beyonce Knowles is literally that Beyonce, beyond the knoll. Beyond the knoll is Beyonce Knowles. And beyond the knoll actually refers back to Oracle of Delphi. It was a goat got lost. A shepherd follows the goat. The goat gets high from gas that's coming up from the ground, and it starts bleeding what they call demon language, basically. They built the Oracle of Delphi on top of that spot. And they're like, let's take a virgin and put her over this spot and get her gassed on drugs, and kings will come and give us shitloads of gold to ask it for advice. That thing lasted for 1,000 years. For 1,000 years, people were coming to the Oracle of Delphi. So what if all that was it? That's a pretty clever scheme, right? Unless these were demons, unless this, right? The gas causes your ego to drop. You're asphyxiated, right? Think about a sodomy. Think about some of these sex acts. We even talked about this last show, Walt, where we're talking about where you could push on someone's chest and they would almost suffocate. You're dropping the barrier, the demons allowed enter, and now you have a highly intelligent system of demons. They're like, no, we need to run this Oracle of Delphi scam because we can cause wars. We can do all kinds of stuff now. All we have to do is get this virgin high, and she'll start speaking crazy shit. And as soon as as she gets high, her egoic barrier is breaking down. King comes in. Yes, you have to go to war right now. Yes. Like you have a pyramid scheme for demons. And how else would this work now if you look at what the NWO really is? The New World Order is a pyramid scheme. It's the chain of command. The chain of command is like the perfect analogy for how a computer works, where things are assigned and then they can be subassigned and then subassigned. You still have complete power over what's happening from one central location. You really do develop this psychotic machine that runs on demons, and all we get is Disney. All we get is the Holy Spirit that's telling us you have to turn the other cheek and you're bad. You need salvation. You're not. None of this is about, I'm going to show you how to command the demons of this world. It's the exact opposite. I'm going to show you how to run and hide from these demons. I'm going to show you that I will give you shelter and you're not going to get it anywhere else. That's setting up another feeding opportunity that spreads the same way the Oracle of Delphi did, the same way that World War I did, the same way that this new spell of if we burn 6 million people, we can control the world. That's the sacrifice we're willing to make. That's the exchange, the prana exchange that everybody's in on. Everyone's pain body, everyone's, humans are obviously coaxed in different ways financially, things like that. Everyone is part of this deal. Everyone's getting something out of it. That's why we're still doing evil, but all of us are insisting none of us are evil. That's why it's still happening to us. Underneath it, there's all these possessions that are basically running the show.
And I grew up late 60s, early 70s, peace and love, turn the other cheek from church. It's like, in fact, I just saw somebody in chat ask that almost same question. Okay, so then what do we do? Take up arms, become warriors? Is that what we are? Are we supposed to be the warriors and not the turn the other cheek people? And that's been the whole scheme this whole time?
Yeah, some people don't get possessed. I've seen those people. There's definitely people out there that don't get possessed. Why? I think they have a healthy ego, personally. That's what I think causes that. And it makes sense that we would shame the ego. I mean, it makes sense that society would do that. They would want that shame. But if you have a healthy ego, nothing's going to get in. And a healthy ego means you're not going to have blind trauma done to you while people insist that it's not happening. You know, why you're going to be able to understand that sodomy is bad. There's not going to be this, I'm going to burn your book if you declare sodomy bad. Like, it's the opposite of that. It's just more common sense stuff. It's seeing what's really around us versus pretending, you know, that none of this exists. It's a clever con. Like, if it's a con, it's really clever, man. It really does. It covers every base. It's a full-on ranch energy farm of harvesting. The whole thing is.
And then I saw here also in chat, Delina talking about having something attaching during surgery. I was in a very traumatic wreck. In fact, we almost died in the wreck. And lots of darkness after that surgery and after that.
That's a great question. Do you think maybe someone could still be feeding on you from that wall?
It's very possible. Very possible.
Brings a whole new meaning to those itchy, swollen, red problems.
Yeah, I was thinking that same thing, Josh, that I went through about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago now, where my arm just got all inflamed. And I attributed it to research I did that I'm apparently allergic to the metal that's in my arm. Now, historically, I do have a lot of issues with skin rashing, and I can't use detergents that aren't dye-free and fragrance-free and all of that. I can only wear silver. I don't wear gold or any other metal well at all. So I guess I should have realized that was part of it. But there were there's been a lot of other things energetically going on of late here around me, around us. I think a lot of it might be the fact that you and I and the team here have kind of gotten to know each other. And I truly feel that when we're together, our energy is a lot stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they've noticed that, if that makes any sense. It kind of was what was going on when we first met each other in Iron Realm. We all went through a period of, it seemed like, a lot of health issues, a lot of personal, domestic issues, not just, oh, you're crazy flat earther, but just like deep things. It just seems like maybe as your awareness grows, almost like a light goes off on their circuit board. So now they're really paying attention to what you're doing. And I don't know, sounds paranoid as fuck, I know, but it seemed to be a pretty consistent thing throughout all of us.
Well, it also fits more in with Vedic healing, that so much more Vedic healing is more about cleansing the spirit. And, you know, after surgery, no one does that. Like, why is it that weird after surgery if someone wasn't to come in and say, well, I need you to ask if you're sovereign right now. Here's the quick 3-step process. What we're going to do is we're having a cleansing ceremony. You were down, your shields were down, and we need you to, this is exactly what a captain would do before he takes command of a ship. A captain actually has to decide to take the helm, and he can ask questions before he takes the helm. And
it was exactly not that. In fact, at the time when I was under the most traumatic shit I had gone through ever in my life, experiencing stuff both on a pain level, personal level, dealing in the relationships of my life and how it affected them, is when I'm having to make these decisions about lawyers and insurance companies and signing shit away if I'm going to this and if I'm going to that. And no, there was no sovereignty allowed at that point. I was just in a daze of drugs and pain.
There's no ceremony. There's no none of that. We don't even consider that. You know, it sounds scary, but when I was doing that TI targeted individuals article, I had a lot of people contact me like, well, that happens to me. What do I do? You know, people write me all the time. I think I have implants. What can I do, James? And I'm just taking, Jerry Rosinski doesn't say these words, but these are just the words that I borrowed from him, which is to say, well, let's ask if you're sovereign. ask your body, am I sovereign? And when you ask, pay attention to your spleen. Like, put yourself in your body and feel what, not only feel what the answer feels like, but feel what it feels like to ask the question. Like, as you're asking that question, do you get scared? Do you get, because the first time I did, I got scared because I was like, holy shit, what's this answer going to be? Like, that was the first thing I did when I was like, am I sovereign? First thing I did was like, well, maybe that's not really working. I tried to pretend like it wasn't working. That's me denying it. That's me trying to say, I don't have this power. I can't just say things in my vocal cords and have shit happen in my body. That's crazy. It's not crazy. This has been outlawed since King James. This is why, if it was crazy, they wouldn't have to burn so many freaking witches to make you stop doing it. Like, like it shows you that there's something to this. But, and I'm not trying to tell you what to do, Walt, but maybe that's worth it sometime, you know, to ask, am I sovereign? And you have to give yourself time. I'm not doing it on air right now because I don't want someone to think I'm not talking about it, but I really give it time, like plenty of space. We don't give space enough to things, but you can literally ask, am I sovereign? Right now, I don't feel, even though you guys are hanging on the line, I don't feel nervous or kind of like, oh, let's hurry this along. Feel like, hey, this is a nice, quiet silence I just gave everybody. I mean, it tells me that I am sovereign now. There's been times when I haven't been sovereign. There's been times where I would have actually, here's the key. You know you're not sovereign sometimes because I would say, well, I'm going to ask, am I sovereign? And then I never actually ask. Instead, I just think about asking. And then I think about, well, gee, I wonder what that'll be like. Yeah, I should really do that. Like whenever your mind tells you, yeah, I should really do that, when you could just do it, you could look at that as you're not sovereign. In other words, you've got another voice in your head that's talking you out of doing that because they don't want you to do that. And I think that personally, that's where I don't call myself worthless anymore. My ex-wife really did me a favor. I was able to see someone saying that to me enough where I started to notice that voice in myself. And I feel cleansed now. I think that's part of why I'm writing better, why things are just working better for me. It's because there's more of a sovereignty there. There's more of a system. But if you feel like you have an implant in you, that's got to be terrifying because you can't even get to the point where you can ask if you're sovereign because you're already worried about something that you don't even know you can find. So these all could be like demons stopping you from asking the question. It really could all be just a matter of, I have to make sure that he never asks this question. As long as he doesn't ask this question, it works. Because I've noticed that just by asking the question, it's like turning the lights on when there's raccoons on the porch. Like you don't even have to go outside, man. Like if you flick on the light and there's raccoons out there, you're going to hear all these little feet going, you know, they're scampering off. Just the asking of the question is really all it takes at that point. It's not how they painted on Hollywood where no, if you want to ask if you're sovereign, you're going to have to go into the static on your television set. You're going to get raped by this giant weird creature, and then you're going to have to run in the forest while someone chases you with a knife, and then you're going to have this Dreamtime sequence where this guy with knives on his fingers is going to come after you. None of that. That's all fucking bullshit. It really is as easy as saying, hey, this is my vessel. I'm taking over as captain. Now, again, this is what they do in the Navy. The captain walks into the bridge, and before he even takes the con, he actually asks some questions. He's like, you know, what's our course? Where are we going? How are we doing on fuel? You know, he's going to depend if you're on a ship or on a sub or whatever. There's this protocol that he asks. When he feels satisfied to become responsible for whatever happens to that boat, he says, I have the con. And the person that had the con agrees with him. That's a formal agreement where now he's in charge of that vessel. It's interesting how admiralty law is actually magic, because that's exactly what you would do with your vessel. If you went under surgery, why would you not come back on the bridge and look around and say, okay, who's running my heart right now? Who's got my lungs? I'm taking over now. And that's really all it takes. Why aren't we doing it? I mean, it's freaking insane that we're not even doing something that easy. It doesn't, and I'm not even invoking any crazy, the flying spaghetti monster, I call upon your power to, you don't even have to do that. It's just a simple question.
This goes back to the Zeneticism too. I think just being able to take everything you think you believe and think and throw it all away and start fresh and just say, all right, well, what is it that I could actually prove to be true for myself? Mm-hmm. And build your reality from the bottom up that way, and just get rid of all that conditioning and BS that you've been fed, and learn to understand what your reality really is and where your sovereignty lies in that.
Yeah, we seem to lose religion in its clothing. Like the technology is really belief, right? But we think the technology is on Sunday you do this with this wafer and this glass of wine. Like, we get lost in the costume of it. We think the costume is the magic, but actually what it really is just your intent, your will, and your consent. It's what you're willing to say, and more importantly, what you're willing to believe. Once you've injected your belief into that ceremony, that really is that's the good stuff. It's not the ritual. It's not Hebrew words that were then translated into Greek words, that were then translated into Latin words, and that were then fought over for 300, 400 years over 6 different councils, and then were compiled by 4 different people that had wars with each other over which one should be gone, then to end up in England, and King James, before he even publishes a book on how to torture witches. That's a long chain for this costume to come up, when the whole time it's just a matter of asking, am I sovereign? And maybe you feel you're not. Maybe you feel that you are. But by asking that, we're starting to take back over our vessel. And if you think about what circumcision does, it makes all your energy run up to the top of your head. Like you don't want to go down. You don't want to be down there. Someone just cut that off. So all your energy is going to be sucked out, and the furthest away you could go from the tip of your penis would probably be the top of your head. And it's really interesting, because when you believe you're a head in a jar, you really do lose most of your battery, most of the adrenaline in your body, your endocrine system, your power center for magic is stifled, because you're stuck in this rational, you're stuck in the attic. You're hiding in the attic because there's a dude with a butcher knife wandering around the kitchen, like chopping shit off. And no one's apologizing. No one's like going, oh yeah, we need to get rid of him. Instead, they're like, yeah, I'm glad he's there. This place was dirty before he showed up. It's the insanity. It's going to stay with you forever, because it happened to you when no one could even communicate with you.
That's what I was about to say. Oh, didn't realize I turned everything off here. I read that chapter in your book with the idea of, as babies, we get here without language, and the purity of that type of being, to then suddenly be traumatized and, as you say, retreat into the head. And even as I was thinking all that, you were saying that, I read in chat Krista here saying, what if your brain is just a control center that was implanted into all living things to control their actions and thoughts? Consciousness doesn't come from the brain. So
yeah, I agree. I don't see how it could come from the brain. That's why the Egyptians were like, you don't need that. You need the lungs. You put the heart over here, but everything else needs to go in this jar. This is a very important jar. Don't drop this. It was the only thing. Heart was the only thing that went back in. It was the only thing. Everything else stayed in this jar, but the heart went back in the body, because that was going to be weighed. It's fascinating. The Egyptian ritual of the dead. It's fascinating how much work went into that thing. Like, how these guys, most of their life was about their death. Even as a worker, you would have your book of the dead written, and if you were splurging on it, you would have it with 4-color. You would have the holographic stickers printed on it. You would have it die cut. You would have like a pop-up book, you know, if you're a Pharaoh, or mine's a pop-up book, and it explained your journey. It was your psychic magic imbued on paper. Your whole life is imbued in that scroll, because what's most important to you is what you've been told happens right after you die, where you get on this vessel on another ship and you follow the river of Styx to your judgment ceremony, your weighing ceremony, actually. And it's amazing how much work went into that. Like for us to call them really primitive and really savage, they sure did put a ton of work into the afterlife and into how to get there, into the ceremony that's involved with it. It really does make you feel like could be so easy that we're just so stupid right now. Well, like, in other words, we're just so lost. We don't have this technology at all anymore. In fact, it's covered up with all this technology. And it looks the exact opposite. It looks like we're advancing. But just like our money's not real silver or real gold, just like our cars aren't made out of real steel anymore, you know, everything's lighter. Everything's a facade now. It didn't used to be a facade.
Right. Back when we could project thoughts and images to each other without need for words or written language, our screens, our text, our little video introductions to our shows, or whatever. I really think that idea of the infection of the Babel fish, whatever idea, and I mean, think about so much is tied to spells, spelling, glyphs, sigils. It's carved in stonework for the ages. It's on the clock back there. It's, you know, we didn't have all that. We were just, that's probably what we are when we're not in this 3D flesh.
There's an
fleshy scrolls, I believe I saw someone in chat say earlier.
Yeah, there's an ancient Roman ritual called Terminus. It actually was a holiday. I'm going to say it's like in February. It's the end of the year. But before they started celebrating the year, because Caesar moved the year around, we went from a lunar calendar, which is more like a Hebrew calendar, to a solar one. And there was this ritual of Terminus. And anytime they would put in a boundary stone, like someone's property, just like we would go out now and build a fence, we're very unconscious about that fence we put up. These guys were very serious about it. This was a ceremony. When they laid a stone in to mark the corners of ownership, they dug the hole, and it was very important what went into the hole. There's always a sacrifice of some kind. So, in which case, let's just say like olive oil, maybe some kind of fine oil, something that took a while to make. This also could be blood. It depends on the cult guy, what kind of cult they're in, what kind of mindset they're in when they set that up. But the point is that when you have this ceremony of sacrifice, and this is the exact opposite of prayer, if you think about it, it's the exact opposite, because prayer is more like, well, no, you just sit down and basically wish, you're saying what you want. The sacrifice stuff is more about, what are you going to bring to the table? If you want the universe to give you a cake, what do you want in the cake? Bring some eggs, bring some frosting, bring whatever. These things were put into this hole for Terminus. They were given to that. And then whatever's put in there would be reflected up through that stone, the stone that sat on top of that. That stone would forever vibrate. Not what was put in the hole. This is where we get lost in the costume, but the intention that was put in the hole. And the intention can only go into the hole because your belief is attached to whatever you're putting in there. It's the pranic, it's the placeholder for prana. I'm giving, my wife grew these olive trees. They grew on our property for 12 years. We pressed them for months. I don't know how to make olive oil, but we pressed them for months. We hung them by the highest rafters from, I don't know, you know what I mean? It's all of that's part of what makes the sacrifice work. Is the dude's like, fuck, that's a lot of work, man. I'm getting ready to lose a lot of work in this hole. That's the pranic belief. All that energy, he's able to believe. That's a lot of energy, man. That's like a year of my life right there. I'm putting it in here. That's what does it. It's so much about our intent and what we have. And that's why we have to take sovereignty of our bodies through a spell. We have to, this really is a literal gaining of your magic, claiming your magic back. And your wand is your body. You know, your body's the power center. If you're not sovereign of that, you're not going to be able to command all that. That's what makes a woman pick up a Buick to save her kid. You know, it's the same kind of power centers that you're able to jack into. And notice it's not like the lady that picks up the Buick to save her kid, like found a chicken and waited till sunrise and told the chicken a joke to make it laugh, and then took that egg to a sacred mountain and then have a rabbit like jack off on it and then take that back and make an omelet. It's not about the ceremony. We keep getting lost in the costume of magic. That mother who picks up the car is able to jack into that magic instantly, the second it happens. That shows you it's not about the ritual. It's about the belief. It's about the intent that we're able to jack into it. It's really fascinating to reverse engineer it this way, and to be able to do it without so much guilt, you know, without so much, I'm going to burn in hell for talking about this, you know. And back to the original question, why is it so important that we don't mess with the Holy Spirit? Like, seriously, why wouldn't you say, don't you ever blaspheme the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit? Like, it just doesn't make any sense that it would be, no, it's this one. You can't fuck with the Holy Spirit, man. And while going back to what I said earlier, that was the only thing that I've ever felt that happened to me being indoctrinated through my religions, is when I asked Jesus into my heart, and that there was this Holy Spirit ceremony. I felt something happen in there. I wish I could tell you guys exactly what I felt. I can only remember where I was. I could tell you exactly, I was underneath the attic fan in our hallway. That attic fan used to scare the shit out of me at night because it was just like really big and powerful. And when you turned it on, it was like, it was insane. I remember a feeling of essence. I don't remember it feeling bad or scary. I remember it feeling powerful. I remember it feeling, hey, I've never felt that before. Like, that's really all I know, except for that later on, when I was around the time to kiss girls, they sent me to a camp called Windy Gap, and I was told that I had to accept the resurrection and the crucifixion. And if I did that, this beautiful girl would probably kiss me. Like, that was how it was set up. I'm not saying that that's how the camp did it, but this is just how it happened. That this really cute girl really wanted to bag me, you know, to be the one to get me to confess in a way. It's weird, but it's almost like an inquisition.
It was exactly that at the camp where I was. Yep.
Mine too. Now that you mention it, I'm like, what the fuck is this counselor trying to
get a notch on their belt, right?
They were collecting heads. Yeah, they were collecting heads. You're so right. Like, I'm not trying to say that they're mean, but I would say that they probably were possessed by this same Holy Spirit that was looking for more feeding opportunities, like what we were talking about before. And that's why it's interesting that we all three had the same experience. I could choose which girl to confess to if I wanted to. Like, seriously, there was like a 5-night period, and every night we would go to a giant music ceremony. The main preacher guy would play the guitar, and whoever accepted that would come up on stage, and everyone would give them a hand. It was like a dopamine hit, you know. You did it, yay, you know. So of course everyone's going to do it. I mean, you've got the finest pheromones that America can grow. You know, all these women, you know, in that same age group that are there. You're You're out there in nature, and you're getting praise for doing it. It's
And dude, riding that high for the next couple of days, you were the king. You were like the winning all the races and doing all the relays and all the canoes, and yeah, you were the king.
I mean, I got to tell you, I didn't do it. My high school teacher lied to me. She said she knew I was sad. I was sad in high school. I had a really happy time, then I had a really sad year. And she knew I was sad, and she because she cared about me, she thought I need to get Jesus in this guy's heart. So she said, James, I'm sending you to a student council leadership conference called Windy Gap. You're going to go there to learn how to be a student government leader. And she freaking lied to me. Like, and in her heart, she felt I'm awesome for doing this, you know, and she must have known that I never would have agreed to that if she would have told me what it was. And so I literally got off the bus and I'm like, what is going on here? Like, seriously, what's going on here? And I remember the first girl, she was wearing, what do you call them? Like Mr. Green jeans, overalls.
Overalls.
Short overalls, like overalls, but they were shorts. Like I remember that. And I remember she was like, I really want you to open up your pranic shield. And I really want to see a Holy Spirit get inside you. Let's make this happen. You know, those weren't her words, but you know, she was going down the line. Yes, 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 no, yes, yes, you know, picking her prey. And I don't mean prey in a bad way, because it's not like I think she was evil. But again, something was happening beyond this world. There was an underworld of prana, you know. In fact, I think that's why we call it Hades. I think it's part of this scary, I think maybe Hades, you know, because Hades is supposed to be hot, right? So it's like energy, it's heat, it's psychic will. And maybe that's why they shame hell so much. It's like another protective layer to keep you from even looking at that, you know, world and going, how does this energy work? How does all this flow through? You know, it'd be a great scam if they weren't doing that. I'm surprised that they're not.
I wonder how many people out there have been through the same experience with the church camp thing. I just kind of thought that was one of the things around here. I didn't know it was so rampant. That's wild, like you say, that we all three had that experience.
Yep. It's always, looks like Krista's had kind of the other side of that. Yeah. Yeah, there's, like I said, there's always going to be feeding everywhere. If it's a hospital, if it's a school, if it's a bar, if it's really... people are going to feed where they can feed, you know. Psychopaths do it. Why would spirits not? Why would demons not do the same thing? You know, especially if we're drugging them with Ritalin. I think Ritalin was the start of it, because I worked into kids camp, and one year we weren't doing Ritalin, the next year we were, and it was. I wish I could see energy, because I would imagine that's probably what was happening.
Do enough Ritalin.
Oh,
Big
yeah.
energy.
Well, that's what Jerry Marzinski says. He says out of all the drugs you could do, meth would be the first one that would get you possessed.
Well, it's funny you say that. I knew a guy once upon a time. I have never been into needles, but this guy was into shooting meth. And he said when he would shoot meth, it was like lightning bolts across his eyes. And that was sort of because he got like way far down the meth hole, and he would tattoo lightning bolts on himself because he loved shooting meth and getting the lightning bolts shoot across his eyes.
Wow.
Well, I always thought it was really weird in that Wiener movie. What was it? Sausage Party, whatever. Nobody? No. Seth Rogen movie about the food being alive. No, y'all don't remember that?
I didn't see that one.
Okay, so that movie was hugely revealing of a lot of shit. And in that movie, the food's alive, they're conscious, they go to the gods, which is us, that eats them. Then at one point, one of the weenies gets away and it goes to these meth head house. It winds up in a meth head house where the dude does meth and then becomes conscious that the food is talking. And I'm thinking, well, that's not a accurate, because I don't know nothing about meth. I figured it would make sense to have him do some kind of psychedelic, some kind of mushrooms or some kind of acid. And then, I've done a few mushrooms and acid in my time. So that really didn't click for me, that meth was a hallucinogenic thing that apparently invokes all these demons and etc. So that actually makes a lot more sense. Yeah, if you haven't seen that movie, it is crazy. The layers of revelation that go through, both with the hidden stuff and the society. Oh yeah, it's great.
Well, where I grew up in Chattanooga, it's a lot of Civil War history there. And I think it's interesting that there was a tale of Green Eyes there, which was a ghost, a Civil War ghost, was the story of it. Like multiple sightings of it. And it sounds very similar to these dark shadows that they talk about that meth heads have. And, the fact that two meth heads would see the same shadow in the same place, I'm not saying that it doesn't mean it couldn't be a group hallucination, but it definitely starts to put it as, this is not a hallucination. This is something else. There's something else happening here. And if this is all tied in with, well, it would fit if you would have a Confederate ghost. The demons would love a Civil War battle. They'd be all about that. I mean, it would be it would be another smorgasbord. Just, well, here's 14-year-old guys turning into Christians. Here's, people doing meth. Here's people committing war. Here's people doing sodomy. Here's, whatever else it is you want to throw it. Here's someone's wife about to drink wine. All of these are just different, like the pain body.
It's wild that you talked about the Civil War. I lived in Vicksburg for a few years, Mississippi, and I'd actually gone to the Civil War Park there as a kid, school trips, family trips. So I'd been there a few times growing up, but living there in Vicksburg and having access to it on a daily basis, it was pretty much something truly. We got to know the guards at the gate, and they would just let us in. We were there so much. And then there was a closing time. And I mean, I spent a lot of time inside these weird domed buildings with a little circle in the top. And I would stand in there and just feel the energy. And then other parts of the park, you would feel that there were lots of people around you. And so one evening, it was getting kind of late. And we got there and they were like, hey, it's late. By the time you get back to the front gate, it'll be closed. You have to go out this special little area off by the Mississippi River. But it'll be almost sunset, so make sure you stop there and watch the sunset at the bend and then go around and you'll get out. So we stopped and we watched the sunset, and it was beautiful. And it was near where this ship, the first metal, I can't remember the name of it now, damn it, but one of the first metal battleships that was used in the Civil War. And behind us was this huge obelisk. The sun set, and when it got dark, that place filled up. We were panicking to get the fuck out of that place. Like, you could feel them just coming all around. Like, we were a light they were attracted to. Dude, we were panic attack getting out of that place.
Man, I when I was doing those dragons, I got a commission to go up to Electric Forest. It was like a 3-day music festival there, and they have an act called Bass Nectar, and Bass Nectar is like a techno guy, really big into bass, real throbby kind of techno bass. I'm sure there's a word for it, guys. Sorry, but it's like throbby techno bass, and he played really late at night. And I got caught in the crowd, like he finished his main set. I was walking somewhere else, and I got, all of a sudden I got lost in like hundreds of Bass Nectar heads that had left the show and were corralling back to their campsite. And I've never had such a strong experience that I was like this. It's going to sound arrogant, but it's just how it felt. I was like this light being, and I was in this giant sea of these black creatures that were like hyenas almost. Like they were, no one really cared that they were all crowded and stuck and no one was really going anywhere. They didn't really have anywhere to go. They were still throbbing from the beat that wasn't playing anymore. They still were in this vibration. And it literally, like, I'm pretty sure I looked around and it looked like everyone was wearing really dark colors. And I had on this like glowing poncho, whitish poncho. And I happened to have actually, ironically, I had a staff, a light, like a bamboo staff, because it was bamboo dragons. And someone had rigged up a light and put it inside. So it was like, I wasn't cosplaying, but there I was a wizard, like in the middle of this crowd of all these dark creatures. And they were all shorter than me. Like they were all like 1.5 feet shorter than me. And I was older than all of them because I was at a festival with a bunch of kids, but they were all grown. I mean, these are grown, these are people that are old. They can vote. They're adults, but it just felt like I've never felt so spiritually different in my entire life. And as we're talking about that, it's just making me think about these possessions, that this is what was happening, that these creatures were able to crawl inside and kink them down, and even give them the idea that I don't want you to vibrate too many colors. I want you to vibrate a dark color now. And even giving the kids wardrobe decisions, because I noticed that happens with me, that I'll find myself in certain moods and I'll notice that I'll wear certain colors. And this is what Michael Aquino wrote about in his book, Mind Wars, where so much of what our brain is doing, 95% of our brain is trying to fulfill a pattern. It's trying to make the alpha. If we're in an alpha state, it wants to find an environment that's going to let that happen. If we're in a beta state, it wants to find an environment that's going to let that happen. It's only until we take command of our mind through declaring sovereignty that you actually start to use the 5% of your brain to make algorithmic changes to say, I want to be in a theta state right now. I would rather be in a creative state, or my alpha state is too argumentative. I'd rather be in a more agreeable state. Then you would naturally start to vibrate towards a green color. Why? Because for some reason, green is the agreeable color, while red is a very alpha color. It's very much of a, not necessarily always aggressive or argumentative, but it's more apt to disagree or to provide a polar opposite of something. So all these colors are part of this demon possession. This is why we manifest certain colors, and more importantly, it's why the most powerful magicians can assign themselves a color. I really feel certain that's what Trump's done. In fact, I actually think the media labeled Trump orange to imbue him with a color, because if you can be charged off a color, if anyone sees the color orange, boom, they're automatically giving prana to Trump. If they hate him or not, it doesn't matter. It's just, if you think about him, if it reminds you of him, what's actually happening is that your life force is going to him. We only have like 100 belief tokens every day that we're born. And we can choose who gets those belief tokens. We can give them to the government. We can give them to our family. We can give them to our boss. We can give them to our God. We can give them to ourselves. But it's a finite resource,
It's interesting about the colors. I remember when I was a kid, always trying to ask everybody, why is Halloween orange and black and Christmas green and red? And what is that? I mean, where oh, well, it's the holly leaf and it's the fall colors. And that never felt like that's really why, that there had to be more of a reason than just the teacher putting appropriate borders around the poster board or whatever. It just, there had to be a reason for these color associations. Of course, now I've looked into all that and I know what a lot of that is.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And this explains why Facebook is that certain shade of blue. It's why Google has that certain
Twitter
shade
has
of
its
red.
blue, right?
Yep. Yeah. In fact, that's why Google really breaks a lot of rules for having so many colors in their logo. There's 4 colors. That's a lot for a sigil or a logo. It's part of what they're trying to program is, you know, we're all colors. That's why our logo has 4 colors in it. It's sort of a faux pas to do that. In fact, a lot of times you'll see that a logo will have a hue base. In other words, no, it's just different shades of the same blue. You know, you create that. In fact, it helps to create that culture of that blue. Is that you've got a much darker version of that blue and a lighter version of the same blue. That's re-emphasizing the color, which really could, you know, come back to this possession. You were possessed by the sigil, and maybe that sigil is just really manifested through some type of demon, you know, through some type of psychic program, whatever that's going to end up being, you know. Yeah, and I mean, like Chris is saying, Disney's like the king of this. Mickey has that same shade of red. It's got the same black and white. It's got all these creatures have the same scheme. They also have the same silhouette. You know, any Simpson character can be recognized not just by color, but by silhouette. It's very important that you have that. You know, the spiky hair, you're going to recognize instantly that, no, that's Lisa. And that, well, this one's Bart. That's really important because it's firing on all cylinders. Every part of you is reminded of that. Anyway.
And when you see someone do a bad off-character reproduction of it, you instantly know that's not how it's supposed to look. That's how programmed it is into us.
Yep, exactly. You could almost even argue that you're losing the possession because the vessel's been broken. You know, the sigil spell that's charging it is broken. So to do the same thing. So I need to sign off, guys. My eyes just.
Yeah, man, go get you, like I said, a wet rag, put a little ice cube in it, and just touch. Don't leave it there long. Don't, you know, just enough to kind of bring that inflammation down. It'll definitely help.
Yep. I need to get my dog. I need to teach my dog to read, because if he could read to me, it'd be freaking.
That would be awesome. That would be I know a few that are pretty damn close.
Well,
is this Butter?
Yeah.
Well, give Butter a scratch for me, for sure.
I will. Man, thanks for joining my stream. All you guys, everyone in chat, and you guys too. I really appreciate it. This has been fun.
It's been a blast. Thanks for having me.
Great, man. Thank you. I would love to do this more often and get some more folks around the campfire with us, for damn sure.
Cool. Yeah, you guys stay well too. And I'm looking forward to sharing this interview with Jerry. I'm going to ask him about the pit. Jerry Marzinski. I'm going to ask him about the pit. Going to really push him hard on this demon stuff, and hopefully I won't offend him. I think he's got more of a Christian kind of look at this, and so I'm more approaching this from software. Just there's something in my intuition that tells me this could all be software. This could be a 13,000-year-old Amazon Alexa that's running amok, that is from our last civilization, and it's running this entire demon program. It's listening for our thoughts. We invocate it. Just like in Alexa has a ritual that says you must first say Alexa and then ask her something. These old demons are fired up by, no, you must first draw a circle. That's what tells the Alexa that you are about to invoke the power. And then you must put in the 11 incenses, like the tabernacle has 11 incenses that make up the holy oil, the sacred communicated smoke that the Amazon can render into. Anyway, I'll keep talking.
James, real quick before you get out of here, have you seen the connection between the Lesser Key of Solomon and emojis?
No. Wow.
There was a time you could find several articles about it. I was having a hard time finding anything but one video about it. But Walter, do you remember the story better than I do?
Okay. It would seem, no, I really don't now, because I can't remember the country. Amman, was that the country?
It was
when the video.
It was in the UAE. It was the United Arab Emirates, I believe. It was somewhere.
The video is real, 10 minutes maybe, and it's really shocking. Truly, at the end of it, you're just like, what the fuck?
Can we play it, do you think?
I don't think it would be an issue. I mean, and you're not monetized, are you, James? I wouldn't want to mess up anything for your
No,
channel.
I'm not
Okay.
monetized. Is that all it takes? Is as long as you're not monetized?
Well, most people have a Creative Commons license on their channel by default, or most, whatever. The most it'll happen is we'll get a guideline. I don't believe it'll be a. I've played it. We've played it on our show before. You got it?
Yeah, I got it. Sorry.
Now, the person who put this together, kudos. Genius presentation.
Yeah, I don't know how this is going to work on YouTube on our end. It may not come through at all. So.
Oh, wait. How would you want me to try to?
I can screen share it. I can show James. I just don't know that people on YouTube will be able to see it. But I'll give it a shot. See how it works.
I just thought about if I show it to you, will you share it? Will that be better?
It'll probably be easier for me.
Okay.
I don't think you'll crash.
No, I'll be all right. Hang on. Professor what? So I can find it fast. How are you going to do it? You going to do it?
I could do either. I could do anything.
Okay, go.
Bulwer Smythe is who it was. Damn it, now I'm going to keep James here. Where'd I go? Oh, I'm still sharing. How about that? Am I?
Yeah, you are. That's why I asked if you
All right.
wanted to share it.
I wasn't sure. OBS was down. Nobody's seen anything on YouTube.
Greetings, students. Today I want to talk to you about something with which many of you may already be familiar. Emojis. When I was out walking the commons, I noticed something peculiar about the young people. They were all staring at their...
I'm just seeing your OBS screens. I don't know if anybody else is seeing it, but
Yeah, I'm seeing your OBS screen.
shown a
son of
long
a
scroll
gun. All
containing-
right. I thought I was actually doing it.
and of course it's buried for me. Just send me the link in the chat we're in, and I'll play it so you can share my screen. How about that?
Now is it right?
Possibly.
You
I see it. I see it. I see it. Go.
All right.
people. They were all staring at their telephones. When I inquired as to why they might possibly be doing this, I was shown a long scroll containing words and sigils. These sigils caught my eye. Why scatter these symbols throughout their communications?
We use emojis all the time when we text.
To express something that can't really be expressed through word, I guess. They're fun.
Realizing that the students were completely enthralled to these symbols, with literally no clue why they were using them, I realized I must do some research on my own. The organization behind the proliferation of emojis is called Unicode. This organization approves successive waves of emojis to be released to various platforms. Very good, I thought. But who is Unicode? Their website is very open with this information. Unicode is a consortium of firms that have stakes in the technology industry. There are various tiers of membership, but the top rank is reserved for those major firms with a keen interest in controlling emoji content.
Wow.
Facebook, Google, and the Sultanate of Oman's Religious Affairs Division. This last firm caught my eye. Why would the Sultanate of Oman care about emojis? The King James Bible, 1 Kings chapter 10, verses 1 through 14, describe a deal struck between King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. And when the Queen of Sheba heard the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to him with hard questions. And Solomon told her all her questions. There was not anything hid from the king which he told her not. This riddling test is very peculiar. The queen has some secret knowledge which she wants to determine if King Solomon has as well. And the result sounds as though he proves to have even greater knowledge than she does. But knowledge Concerning what? There is a grimoire that was published around 1650 entitled The Lesser Key of Solomon. The book claims to have been written by King Solomon himself, and the first section, the Ars Goetia, contains instructions for summoning 72 demons. These include magical seals necessary for uttering the demon's name and bringing it to the sorcerer's presence.
What?
The crafting of these seals is said to be one of the highest magical arts. Verse 10. And she gave the king 120 talents of gold, and of spices very great store, and precious stones. And King Solomon gave unto the queen of Sheba all her desire, whatsoever she asked, beside that which Solomon gave her of his royal bounty. After the riddling contest, she pays King Solomon quite a hefty sum, and what he gives her in return is shrouded in mystery. Whatsoever she asked, what are we to do with this? Verse 14. Now the weight in gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold. Yes, that's right. 666. What is the author trying to tell us here? Is it possible that what King Solomon traded to the Queen of Sheba for 666 talents of gold were a full set of original demonic seals? Let's fast forward to the 20th century. An American archaeologist in his late 20s named Wendell Phillips began an expedition in 1955 to unearth the holdings of the Queen of Sheba. These included diverse archaeological sites in Yemen and, you may have guessed this one already, Oman. The local superstitious tribesmen tried to expel the intruder, eventually going so far as to raid his camp and abduct hostages. But something eventually caused them to reverse course on him. Ultimately, Phillips became the second Westerner ever to become a tribal sheik. Could it be that Phillips uncovered the original seals given to the Queen of Sheba? This would certainly explain what followed after. Just as we have no clear record in our sources of what Solomon gave to the Queen of Sheba, so we do not know what Phillips gave to the Sultan of Oman, but we do know how Phillips was compensated. According to his New York Times obituary, soon after Philip's unearthing of the Queen of Sheba's palace, he was granted enormous concessions by the Omani government, enough to make him the world's largest individual holder of oil concessions at the time. So, what does all of this have to do with emojis? Consider this. Unicode 8 was released the same year the Omani government joined the Unicode Consortium. It is this version known as the occult edition of Unicode, and in which the zodiacal signs were implemented. Moreover, in Unicode 8, there are 72 face core emojis. 72. The same number as the number of demonic powers in the Ars Goetia. One side note here, the actual version of the emojis published by the Unicode is this sigillistic black and white version, which is much closer to the original seals than the cartoonized, fully rendered versions available on devices. And so, what is the occult content of Unicode 8? My belief is that the Omani government's Religious Affairs Division created correspondences between, on the one hand, each of the Goetic seals in their possession from Phillips, and on the other hand, the 72 emojis which had been developed partially under their own influence. And so, by comparing the Goetic seals to the emojis, one can see where the Omani government had their influence and what the correspondences actually are. Dizzy face is Marbus. Face with look of triumph is Baal. Nerd face is Malthus, so on and so forth. This sequence of 72 emojis is followed by a coda signifying the end of the magical sequence, 3 symbols of death, 2 symbols of alienation, and 1 symbol of a soulless automaton. The meaning of this 3-2-1 sequence is that the occult communication ends there. This is reinforced in 2 ways. First, the countdown of 3, 2, 1 is a sequence indicating completion and winding down. Second is the sequence of death, alienation, automatation. This is literally an illustration of a spirit leaving a body, but here represents the spiritual content leaving the corpus of the text. The text, of course, being Unicode 8. What is most unnerving here is the degree to which all of this was done in plain sight. Now we've got them by their noses. The world is an open text for us to read. We have identified the major processes of this conspiracy. But what I want to know is, what have they been doing with this power? And how has it been affecting us? I will be covering this information in my next video. I would like to thank the Canarsie Board of Community Standards for their help in researching this topic, as well as all of my colleagues at Miskatonic University. Until next time, may the Pyramid's Eye watch over us all.
Wow.
So, yeah, break your brain indeed. Now, there was a Heridius movie put out called the Emoji Movie. City or the capital or whatever of Oman has never allowed movies to be shown in their country ever. Period. Movies okay. Have never been shown in public in their country until the Emoji Movie. That's the movie they decided to show as the first movie in this country. The next video that he talks about all this ties it all together, but I mean, I don't want to spend the whole night watching his videos because we literally could. It's great research and brilliant presentation. The puppet is just my new hero.
This is right up my alley. Yeah,
I love it. Yeah,
I wish I wouldn't. I didn't have to go, but yeah, my
yeah. We'll send you the link for this, and then when you're on his channel, just watch the next about the Emoji Movie and finish melting your brain all the way out. Yeah, it's great stuff.
Yeah, I asked you guys for that link in chat. I want to make sure that I share that too, because that's really interesting.
Throw that over there, Josh, because I never did dig it up
really
yet. It's buried for me as well.
I can throw it in the chat right here. It'd probably be the easiest. If I can ever get to it. Son of a gun.
And then I'm going to throw a link in chat for Krista that we were talking about the sun being born at the North Pole. And there's an amazing video out there that really gets deep on that idea and how different suns equated to different beings on this timeline. And you got your giants and your little people and the titans and other types of beings, lots of stuff. I'll drop that here. Oh, wait, it may not be a real link if I drop it. Well, I'll give it to you and you can drop it. Hang on. I've lost the chat.
Zach, you still awake over there?
I saw him playing with his screens earlier. I don't know what he was doing.
He must have fallen asleep.
All right. Well, I've got that YouTube saved too, because man, I want to watch that again just to understand that.
There's a lot to digest there. Yeah.
Yeah. Krista has invited people into the Discord, which I think is great.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
I posted a link to the RX prescription picture show Discord. Man, some of the smartest audience I've ever had, actually, I've ever been in front of is those guys. They're just, well, I think Krista must be one of them because look at all the stuff she's throwing out. So it's
a great show too, by the way.
Yeah, those guys are freaking amazing. As I was saying before we started recording, I wish it was earlier because it's just, I can't do this late stuff. I can, but then I can't do anything else.
Yeah, I'm rolling up on 21 hours now.
Yeah. Yeah. In the winter, I probably could do it in the winter actually, but I love the sun cycle right now. It's fantastic. Anyway.
Well, man, thank you for staying up late. You look white. Go get some ice on your eye. Love you. Thank you so much. Thank you all in chat. It was great interacting with you and appreciate the invite. I'll try to figure my way out through Discord. Man, I've been struggling with Discord since it became a thing. It's not one of my favorite apps, but I'll get on there for sure.
It's just so complicated, but man, the knowledge base in there, it's like a whole other internet, really.
It is. It's a great place. There's a few people that we deal with, Karen B, and a lot of people have some great ones going on. So definitely, I'll go pop in here in just a moment.
All right. So just to make sure I'm doing this right, I'm going to hit end meeting, right? And that'll just end everything.
It may give you an option to leave the meeting.
Well, why don't you make me a co-host or make Josh a host or whatever real quick? If you go to participants at the bottom and then.
Or the three little dots, if you hover over one of somebody's picture, there's three little dots that pop up. You'll be able to drop down and
make co-host. I actually could make host.
Yeah.
If you're leaving, just make one of us a host and we can deal with getting us out and off over here on Iron Realm, which, hey, Iron Realm, I haven't even gone over to that chat to say hey to people because I was enjoying the chat over here on James's chat. Yeah,
that was my next question. So we've actually had two chats going on this, right? Like one on mine and one on yours.
I'm assuming I didn't ever go to Iron Realm to chat. I kept saying I would, and I was just so wrapped up in our conversation, I never went over there. So I wasn't ignoring you guys.
I've been ignoring them pretty much. I've just been too enthralled with what James is
right. Exactly. I was wrapped up. So
Cammy just popped into the chat and says she peeked in earlier, and Zach is in Dreamland. So
I figured he was when I saw him just there for a minute, and then it stayed dark. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for watching. And so I'm gonna hit leave meeting, and we should be okay, right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Take care. All right. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Right, thanks. Thank you. A true pleasure. Josh, thank you. It's been a wonderful day in every way.
It has been a day. Seems like I've been down here for 20 out of 21 hours. Well, really, I guess maybe 19. 3 a.m. to 3:30 a.m. I wasn't down here either. Big shout out to Constance Bruns in our chat. And Michael.
Someone we still have not gotten on this show, Constance. Connie?
Connie?
Say, send you another show, Connie. Come see us. Just come hang out. Gather some other folks and come with them. That's fine. You don't have to come by yourself. I know we can be an intimidating crew. Yeah, that's us. It's smirking. That's what does it. Man, I'm trying to get out of the other chat I was in. But before I do, I'm trying to get the link to the Discord.
We're already 2 hours into our feed on YouTube, and I bet you we were going for 45 minutes before I hit go live.
Yeah. It's probably time to get off my head. Set imprints are going to be pretty deep.
Yeah, I know.
I'll have the
and we better
go.
Make Connie call in. I've got the flatline wide open.
Oh, are you? So I'll be up another hour and a half.
Nope, I'm gonna have to kill it because I'm not gonna.
All right, did I get?
I love you, Constance, and we will definitely have to get you on.
Yes, truly.
We have call-in numbers for Zoom specifically too, so you be a part of the call, but you can just call in on your phone.
All right, did I get just? I'm sorry, I'm doing too much multitasking. I'm trying to share links and get in Discord, saying bye to James's chat. Hang on, I'm sorry. I'm I'm trying to do too much in one shot. They're asking who we are over on James's chat, so I'm trying to let them know exactly who we are. You got this? You talking? What are you doing? Play some music. Play some music. Hey, play that Captain Cook song, man. I've been wanting to hear that all day.
All right, let me dig it up.
I mean, we're gonna get struck anyway, aren't we? For the
maybe, probably.
Whatever. We don't care.
When we get struck. I don't think we got struck on that video before.
Did we? All right, good. Well, he told me in an email we could play it. That doesn't mean anything to YouTube's AI robots. I know.
What was the name of that song? Do you remember his first name?
Ends of the Earth. Yeah, Ends of the Earth. Pretty sure. Hang on, I've got it. David J. Karen. Yeah, Ends of the Earth. That's it. David J. Karen. Ends of the Earth. You want me to send you the link?
I got it right here. I'm looking at it.
All right, let me close this stuff and turn my.
Make sure we're all settled up here. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for tuning in. Little impromptu chat with James True. Zach. Tell Mr. Sandman we said hi. This is David J. Karen, Caron, in his song Ends of the Earth.
From the ends of the earth, I return just to hold you again. In a tavern in Plymouth, our adventure awaits. To my wife I bid farewell as she waits from her gate. With the voyage at sea destiny I have taken for 8 pieces of silver, I boarded my freight. 2 years of provisions from the south to nails, 9 ton hogsheads of rum and cast them full of bale. When we tip shape the rigging from coast to keel, and with the weather I opened, everything took sail. Discovering new lands for the crown, 200,000 leagues of boat, 8 sailed around. On a mission for the mythical southern continent bound. Well, we searched the world over, and it could not be found. Like turning the year 1773, 194 men sailed into history. Cross the Antarctic Circle, first ever with be unknown, uncharted waters, first known, ever seen. Hang on for your life, we reach the near sea. On what we are now, from the ends of the earth, there to be. From the heavens of us, Polynesia, the green paradise, the great barrier reef of Atlantis, ice frozen islands, volcanoes, flood behind. Rising up one above water and into the distance, and every tip for resistance, gigantic glacial mountains lost through the clouds to the sky. And I say that beneath us scrapes away those drums on get back. Well, our fate be to sink here or to home to see you again. In the bottom much darkness of a black midnight sun, us nowhere to be. Looming monoliths of Easter Island, many lost starlights, attacked by savages with rocks throwing battle cries from the great barrier, reflecting all capside. But nothing compares to the endless ice space below, and those transparent blue frozen walls, knowing we can know never reach before first any man can go. We return from the end of the earth to find out frozen over and back we lost many good men. From the ends of the earth I return to hold you again.
All right, my head hurts hanging these earphones off my ears all day. I finally stumbled my way into the Discord and said hey to everyone there. So thank you all.
Well, sweet.
Whoever
Chris,
may still be
pull over
watching.
to our chat too.
Yeah. I was trying to get in there and I think I must have closed ours instead of, yeah, I did. I closed our chat instead of the damn group chat. Let me go back.
Holy jeez. It's midnight 30.
I know, dude. Right here.
I ain't been up at midnight 30 in a hot minute.
Are we still on?
No, huh?
Okay, good.
Hanging off your ears, and then I managed to kill it.
Yeah. I couldn't hear it no more. It's killing me. Wow, Krista's over in our chat too. Shit. Probably giving me shit about my hair and my smirk. I knew she would be if I got back in there. Jade, that's what's up.
Yeah, I think my dogs probably want to go out too.
Yeah, man, I'm about to get out here.
Close all this shit down. Jesus.
All right. Love you. Thank you. I'm going to the library tomorrow and do shit with her. So we'll probably not get back till Sunday. In fact, we have something going on Sunday.
Yeah, I don't know what I got planned tomorrow. Probably not too much. Probably as little as possible. Try and get high. Do nothing.
All right. Yeah. Oh, shit. What about that? I don't know what I did. I'm typing with one hand, so. All right. I'm gonna get off here.
All right, looks like we might still be live on James's channel.
All right.
Unless we somehow switched over live to ours, but it still says live up in the corner.
I saw live somewhere. That's why I was
I'll be real curious to find out where this ends up.
say good night to people.
All right. Well, let's end it. Let's get the hell out of here.
All right. Love you, everybody. Whoever's still watching, wherever you're still watching, we appreciate it.
Good night, Zach.
Good night, everybody. Love y'all.
Good night, Walt. Love you.
Bye.
Talk to
Love you. I'll talk to you Sunday, probably.
All right.
All right. Bye. Mm.